everybody. Welcome in. Today, I have Dr. Ryan Hulla with his PhD in experimental psychology here with me, and we're going to break down an interesting study about the relationship between sugar babies and sugar daddies. I can't wait to get into this one. Welcome to our channel. If this is your first time here, we break down interesting research articles that we come across, and we really just let you know if the research is legit or not. So, I'll let Ryan come in here and go ahead and start with what he found about this study. And I'm JJ, by the way.
Thanks, JJ. Yeah, this article, I'm not familiar with sugar daddy, sugar baby research, but the intro kind of breaks down that a lot of the research has mostly been done in South Africa, oddly enough, and then also some research done in China, Japan, and Vietnam, but not a ton done in the Western countries. This what made this study a little novel. Also, most of the research has focused on sugar's babies specifically, and not the benefactor or the sugar daddy or mama. And this study looked at the benefactors as well. So that's what made this study pretty unique. And I'll say up front that this study, um, it's a mixed methods design, is so meaning that it has a quantitative and qualitative component, meaning they do analysis with numbers that they derive from scales, and they do analysis with content that was written from like free response questions. So a little bit of a complex study here, very thorough, and I think the researchers did a good job overall. But let's start breaking down what their hypotheses were and where they're coming from in the literature. So, uh, they essentially got most of their participants from a website called seeking.com, and this was pretty interesting. They wanted to note that seeking.com is it's got 46 million users as of 2023. Um, this is a huge increase from 2018 when it just had 5 million. And even a larger increase from 2011 when it was just 800,000 users. So anybody that's familiar with the dating crisis that's going on, we do know that younger millennials, Gen Zs, there's a lot less dating going on, and that this could be from a whole lot of issues. But
Hmm.
you know, there seems to be an inverse relationship here with the lack of dating or desired mates for the younger generation and the increased use of the sugar, daddy sugar dating website. So as we are falling deeper into a mating crisis, there could be a trend where we see more sugar dating happening. But that's for another study, another time to look at. I don't know how strong the literature is on that, but into my intuition, we can expect to probably see more sugar dating as if something with the dating crisis doesn't get fixed in the near future.
Sugar dating is booming right now. Sugar dating is booming.
And man, it's a tough economy out there. Got to take your W's when you can.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
I just think it's interesting because, not to get off topic, but any way you chalk it up, that a man ends up paying for sex one way or another, whether it's with time or money or just any kind of investment. So, I see the benefits to these types of relationships, and I can't wait to dive into this study to learn more about it.
yeah, it's funny that you say that because like in the one of the problems in the modern day is that that's not happening as much because a larger percentage of men are having trouble getting the amount of resources necessary to be able to pay for things for their significant other.
Hmm.
So now you're seeing a smaller amount of men with control of more resources, and they're having the ability to essentially they're having their pick of the litter, so to speak, of who they want to date. So anyway, Uh, they define sugar dating by the norm is to spend time together in a dating context and engage in consensual sexual activity in exchange for a negotiated allowance, which can consist of gifts such as traveling, shopping, um, so it doesn't have to be exactly money. Uh, they do note that a small minority of sugar arrangements appear to involve companionship without sexual activity. And I think this is a misconception there because I think some people think that, you know, they can just like be hot around a guy and go to go to events with them and that they could get these benefits of a sugar baby. This research that we're looking at today, they found that only 6% of arrangements involve no sex. So it's a long shot to get that type of arrangement. Um, Arrangements typically begin with a pay per meet compensation. So generally, the benefactor and the sugar baby meet up, a few times. They pay per meeting, and then an allowance is, negotiated out where they decide, okay, 4,000 a month, or I'll pay for your rent and a vacation every 3 months, whatever it is. That's after the pay per meet, they come up with an arrangement like that. Um, Typically, these arrangements are longer term. In this study, I believe they were somewhere between a year to 2 years on average. We'll look into that data a little closer. Typical compensation in prior research has shown that they can range from $300 to $1,000 per meeting, or a monthly allowance ranging from $1,000 to $5,000. So pretty good chunk of change there for for a sugar
Going on a
baby.
date.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it also depends on the frequency. We'll see that in this research where like if you are going on more dates, the price can go up. So it may start off at 2,000 a month, but then the benefactor wants to see the woman twice a week instead of once a week, and then it will shoot up to 4,000 a month. So how, like, just as what you said, so how does this differ from conventional dating? Because a lot of men, will invest a lot of resources into their partner. The difference is between sugar dating and traditional dating on in terms of investment is that conventional dating is not contingent. It doesn't depend on a monetary or material compensation. Um, so, for example, when you first start dating, uh, as a as a man, if you was when you start dating a woman, like it's not expected for me to see her again that I give her a $2,000 allowance, right? Like, yeah, maybe, paying for dinner and stuff will help me get to see her again, but it's not that expected that I pay her living expenses. And I'm not
Mm.
expected to pay her living expenses for a while, right? And then if things go far enough, then, some of the living expenses may fall on my shoulders. But let's say I lose my job and I can't pay for her living expenses for a temporary amount of time. She doesn't leave me in a good relationship. With the sugar baby, as soon as they're not getting paid, they're not seeing you, right? And
Out.
they start off, getting a huge pay up front. Like there is no, seeing each other for a few months and paying for a date here or there, spending 50 to 100 bucks on them. Like no, it's I need my 2,000 a month if you want to see me again type of situation. So that's where the big difference is.
Mm.
Now let's get into the hypothesis of the research. So these researchers, they their hypothesis, they wanted to look at power dynamics um, in sugar baby, sugar benefactor. So they note that in traditional heterosexual relationships, men, wield more power than women do because of, in they cite old research here: greater societal value of status and resources rendered by men than women. I'm going to push back a little bit with them on here. I do trust that their citations and research are valid, but I think that it's not up to date. Um, and I say that because, one, we're in a dating crisis, so obviously women are not finding the men that they perceive as powerful enough to date. But also, we know that in the modern day, there's research that that is cited here by that I found by Rosenfeld, that looked at thousands of divorces and found that 69% are initiated by women in the modern, in
Hmm.
what recent research. So, if you're initiating the divorce, you do have some kind of power. So I I think they just need to update their. They can have this same hypothesis, but I would say bring some additional reasoning to why you have it, other than just traditionally these are the way the power dynamics work. Um, and they also say that because arrangements involve negotiations around money, time, and sex, that there's typically discrepancy in age and financial resources between partners. So, we all have the image: older male with money and younger
Hmm.
attractive female that is getting the money from the male in this arrangement. And these researchers believe that causes the power dynamic they're hypothesizing will be in favor of the male. Again, I feel like this is short-sighted in this hypothesis, because the female is obviously has some power in this, or she wouldn't be getting the money. Um,
Hmm.
and she could have power of reputation over the male. Uh, power to just say no, demand more money. Like, the female is going to be setting the terms of the agreement. But
If
anyway, I'm just
if he's married, she could blackmail him.
right, exactly. Yep.
That would be a
Or if he's
way
in
to
a
flex her power.
or if he's in a powerful position, if he's
Yeah, the
at a
corporate.
church,
Yeah.
not even married, but if he's just paying for, sex of some sort, it can be seen as uh you know, not not a not an act of good moral standards in some, settings like a church or whatever. So what if it's
Hmm.
a pasture, for
Yeah.
example. Sugar daters seem to vary in their efforts to distinguish it from sex work. So they wanted to look at, what's the stigma that sugar daters uh, in experience? Is it similar to sex work, a sex worker's experience, or is it something completely different? Because sugar dating is kind of in between sex work and dating. So it's a little bit of a gray area. Prior research suggests that sugar daters experience similar stigma and distress to sex workers. So um, we'll see if their research holds that, confirms that. They did note that also this website, seek.com, they try to reduce the stigma of sugar dating by they make their advertisement of their website say, um, we match successful people with attractive people. So,
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
that genius,
genius
genius.
marketing.
Yeah.
Yep. That's how they got 46 million users. So, um, they also hypothesized that the gender roles views would be more traditional, because of the sugar dating setup where man pays for a lot of stuff, you know, women, uh, attractive woman, is the gatekeeper of sex, gives sex. So they figured that both the benefactor and the sugar baby would both um, have very high traditional gender role norms. So let's see. Let's get into some of the study characteristics here. So the sample consisted of 45 sugar babies and 28 sugar daddies and 3 sugar mamas. So sugar daddy scenario is a lot more common than the sugar mama scenario. Uh, all the uh, all the participants that were recruited in this study were from the U.S. or Canada, most being from the U.S. The researchers originally recruited 397 participants, and this was from online recruitment. But most of the participants that took the survey failed 2 or more attention checks. Uh, so either for either
Mm,
bots or people that weren't paying attention. I want to give a shout out to these researchers because attention checks are, I feel as a researcher, they're such a vital tool to make sure your data is not biased and it's, not, you're not including people that aren't paying attention, you're not including
mm,
people that are just answering, down the middle for everything. um you, it's eliminating people that are going too quickly. It's
mm,
making sure you don't have bots in the data. uh I see several researchers not use attention checks, and it muddies up the data. It makes cleaning the data much more difficult if you go through that process. Great job using attention checks here to these researchers. Uh, the sugar baby's mean age was uh, almost 29, and then the big benefactor's age was about 28. So we had about a 19-year difference between the sugar baby and the benefactor. Um, most of them were hetero. For the sugar babies, a good percentage of them considered themselves bi. Only 4% identified as homosexual. Um, Over half of sugar babies had college degrees, and the majority worked full or part time. So they had 54% of sugar babies had college degrees, and 63% had another job. So th- this has a very different demographic than your typical image of a sex worker. So, um, this begs the question: are these women just looking to get paid, or are they trying to find a mate also in this process? That's what I wondered when I saw that demographic. Like, first of all, the average age of these sugar babies is 29. Second, most of them are educated. Most of them have a job that may be able to support themselves just fine. So are they looking just for extra money, or are they also trying to just hoping that they can le- latch on to uh, a a potential mate with a lot of money? So let's see.
probably, probably a little bit of both going on, but
Yeah, we'll
you know,
see here later in the data. I think that there's support for that. Yeah, it looks like both are going on. So 51% of sugar babies are in serious relationships. So serious relationships, meaning they have a partner that they consider, their primary. So if you're in poly, if you're poly, like you have your primary partner, and then everybody else is just extraneous. 51 to 56%. 50 of the 51% of sugar babies in serious relationships, 56% were in monogamous relationships. So what is going on here? Like, are they doing this behind their partner's back? Like, so
that
we
would
have
support the idea that they're looking for a better partner. They're
right,
looking for a, yeah.
absolutely, dude. So we have over 25% of sugar babies are in monogamous serious relationships, but they are actively dating other men with a lot of money.
They really there for the money? Are they really there for the money? Are they
Right.
looking for the
Yeah.
relationship and the money?
Yeah, exactly. They're not satisfied in their current relationship, obviously, and for some people, you'll see this where they have. I call it they don't want to let go of a vine phenomenon unless they have another vine to hold on to. So you'll
Yeah.
see people that are not exactly happy or satisfied in their other relationship, but they're not going to leave it until they know they can grab on to another relationship right after because they have a huge insecurity of being, alone.
Alone. Yep.
So, and if you're, I don't want to stereotype here, but if you're drawn into sex work, I'm going to, without knowing the data off the top of my head, I'm going to say that pretty intuitively, there's probably a high chance of a higher rate of insecure people in a sex work type of environment. Um, 52% of sugar benefactors, so these are the people paying the sugar babies, were in serious relationships. So about the same amount of people that, the benefactors were in a serious relationship with the sugar babies. The big difference here is, though, is that 77% of the 52% that were in serious relationships were in monogamous relationships. So, you have about over a third of the benefactors are cheating, on their significant others. So they're just, with granted that most of these are men, they're probably looking for sexual diversity behind their wife's
Yep.
back,
Yep.
so or their
That's
significant other's
exactly what they're
back.
looking for.
Yeah, yeah, and they don't want to go the route, and they want to be able to keep it secret and disclosed. They don't want any reputation ruining. They don't want their significant other finding out. So, like I said, this was a mixed method study, so we're gonna go ahead and look at the questionnaires here. Um, so they originally asked, uh, the first part of the questionnaires was they asked about the history of the participants. So essentially, how many sugar relationships have they had before, emotional intimacy with their partner, their sugar partner, and payment details. But then after that, they wanted to look at, the power dynamics. So they wanted to see, and JJ will bring up the power dynamics scale here. And this scale, I think, is a great scale they used. The power dynamics scale, it's very neutral, it's unbiased. It definitely is measuring social dominance here. Um, and you can tell like how good of a scale it is because you can read this being a male or female and you would have no problem answering this without any sorts of bias. So I can be a male in a relationship and say, you know, I have more say than my partner does when we make decisions in a relationship. Or you can be female because we've all seen it. We've all seen relationships where the male has more say in the relationship, and we've all seen it where the female has more say in the relationship. So every one of these questions on the scale is neutral, just like that, and you can see either a male or female, you know, answering these in an unbiased manner. So great job on the inventory selection there for the relationship power inventory, and it's on a Likert scale, which is always great. So it makes it easy to score.
Hmm.
Um, the next scale is the hypergender ideology scale. And this scale, this is the one they were using to measure traditional gender norms. And I have a big problem, uh, you know, with claiming using this scale to measure traditional gender norms. Now, just let's the first item, a true man knows how to command others, I don't have a problem with. Like that's a question that you would feel like if I believed in traditional gender norms, like, I'd say, yeah, a man should be the one commanding, right?
Yes, I would put in agree there
Right. And then
if
you
I
look
was
at
calling the
question
shots.
2 and you're like, what, how, where are they going with
The
this?
only thing a lesbian needs is a good stiff cock. Holy
Like,
cow.
that's completely off the reservation of a traditional gender norm. Like, like,
Well, I guess they're trying to say, hey, well, do you believe that lesbians still are more attracted to men than women? I guess that's what they're trying to ask. And can they be converted back to being straight?
You can word it though in a much um like a
Yeah.
less extreme way, right?
Yes.
because
Yes. Very
because
extreme.
if I let's say you are a male that says like, I don't believe in, homosexuality. I believe a lesbian just hasn't met the right man. um you can put that as for this item. I just think
Yeah.
people are
Yeah.
homosexual because they haven't met the, right significant other of the opposite sex. They decided to go with the only thing a lesbian needs is a good stiff cock. Like,
That's
I,
interesting.
yeah, I don't understand. I don't understand why they went that. And then like you get question 3, which seems very good for traditional gender norms. Men should be ready to take any risk if the payoff is large enough. We all know
Yes.
like men
They should be.
traditionally are take greater risks, and
Yep.
it's because they're looking for larger payoffs. Um, and then you have no wife is obligated to provide sex for anybody, even her husband. Um, it, so if I was a traditional, if I was trying to measure traditional gender norms, somebody with high traditional gender norms could totally agree with this. But the way this is scored is if you do agree with this, you are low in traditional gender norms. I don't believe like forcing somebody to have sex or saying someone's obligated to have sex has anything to do with traditional gender norms. That just has to do with, you know bad moral values, bad moral compass. Um, so again, like I don't like that question for the survey, and I question what it's actually it's not measuring traditional gender norms.
Yeah. I see your
Um,
issue with that question too.
yeah, it's like 7. A real man can get any woman to have sex with him. What does that have to do with traditional gender norms? Like, that's just egocentrical. That's very egotistical behavior. That's not traditional gender norms. Like traditional gender norms is like, you know, I believe the male should provide everything he can for the family resourcefully, so the significant other can raise the family. Like that's a
Yeah.
traditional
That's
gender norm,
tradition. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like the man is the protector of the family, the woman is the nurturer of the family. Like the woman
Mhm.
should, I believe the woman is better, to cook the food in the family. Like that's traditional gender norms. Like
Mhm. She does
so,
the cooking, cleaning, stays home,
yeah.
does all the nurturing. Man
eh,
goes out and works. Now,
eh,
have you seen question 9?
get a woman drunk, high, or hot, and she'll do whatever you want. Again, yeah. What is that measuring? Like, that's not a traditional gender norm. So,
uh,
so
yeah.
so far, like the researchers have done a really great job here. My question is why are you choosing this scale to measure traditional gender? There are better scales than this out there for measuring traditional gender norms. I've seen them. Like, you
Yeah.
did not have to use this one. Um, so, you know, we're Monday morning quarterbacking here, but my advice to these researchers were if you're wanting to measure traditional gender norms, don't use this scale because I honestly don't know what this is measuring. It's kind of looks like it's a measuring moral values more than it is
Yeah.
traditional gender
It
norms.
it is like a moral compass thing.
Yeah. So, and you're gonna see they had issues in their research because they couldn't with this scale, they couldn't discriminate. Like nobody was scoring high on it. Like everybody was scoring low because most of their participants are not psychopaths, So,
Yeah.
you're not they're not getting any differences between sugar babies and sugar benefactors because
Mhm.
this is not a good scale. Like
Yeah.
anyway, when you do choose scales, always ask is is this scale capturing what I want it to capture? Look at reliability, which I think this one does it list its reliability on this website? I don't know if it does. it may be highly reliable, but then you also have to check validity. Like, is it does it measure what I want it to measure? And so how we do that in statistics is we look if it relates to other measures that are similar to what we're wanting to measure. Like, would this relate to um, if we want to look at traditional gender norms, would this relate to another traditional norms survey, which are out there? You know, would it relate to an androgyny survey? Androgynous, being like male and female traits and measuring those within individuals. So, you could look at that and look in the research and see if this did. I suspect that this doesn't correlate with those, and if it does, it's low. It's not very good. So again, and let me see, this was developed by uh relationship satisfaction and substance dependent men, Trinity Western University, 2004. It was a thesis submitted by a graduate faculty of the counseling psychology program at Trinity Western. So this is not a survey that's gone through rigorous testing. Um,
It shows.
yeah, it was somebody's thesis. Yeah, and it shows like this would not be able to be valid. It would not pass discriminant validity, in my opinion. I don't know. Maybe it's been further research, but it doesn't look like it. To me, it would. It would be, anyway, I could go on. Uh, so far, great study, great design. Love the research going on here, but I just don't like that scale selection. Next, they looked at the sex worker stigma index. So this was a great scale. Um, this one you could answer both as either the benefactor or the sugar baby, and you could definitely have unbiased answers. Either one of them you could see answering, highly, strongly agree or not agreeing at all. So
So Ryan,
question,
let me ask you this. I think this is just a good question for me to ask you.
yeah, absolutely.
Who do you think has the worst stigma with their community? OnlyFans girls or girls who go get sugar daddies? It's got to
You
be
know
OnlyFans, right? That's got to have a worse stigma
that has a worse stigma, I would say, by perception of society and community.
in
So
community. Yep,
right, like me and you would likely have a worse perception of somebody on OnlyFans, but
I definitely would.
right, so same here because you're
It's
with
public.
it's
At least the sugar baby stuff's happening behind the curtain.
right, and it's somewhat more relational with the sugar relationship. Like
Yeah, yeah.
it's only for one other person, right?
Not just
So
entertaining army of simps.
right, yeah, and so and at least the person that they're involved with the sugar dating like is someone that's successful, right? Right,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's not just anybody, but so as a community, I would perceive, I believe people would perceive OnlyFans with greater stigma. Um, and I don't know about the person that is the actual worker. Like, is the person on OnlyFans like, are they over the stigma? Do they feel like this is their calling? Do they enjoy the attention so much they don't, that they don't see it as with any sort of stigma. They see it as liberating, right? Where sugar dating, like by nature, it's discreet. So,
Mhm.
and where OnlyFans by nature is public.
Yep.
So, if I'm doing something discreetly, then I already am open to knowing that I don't want this stigma put on me in a way.
Mhm.
So, your question is the I I don't know which one would feel more stigma, but if I had to hypothesize, I would say the sugar dater because they're doing it discreetly on for a reason. But
Mm.
society, as it probably sees more stigma with the OnlyFans person, and
OnlyFans.
also
Yeah.
the person that is the sugar dater versus OnlyFans. They probably have differences on conscientiousness, like it's a personality dimension.
Hmm.
The sugar dater is probably more conscientious than the
Yeah.
OnlyFans.
Definitely.
So
Okay. All right. Back to topic though. I just thought that would be an interesting thing to mention.
yeah, no, great question. Great question. That's what I'm here for to answer any questions that anybody may have, and you yourself, if anybody in the
Yeah,
comments has
and by
questions.
the way, you can connect with Ryan on Connect, and we're gonna have that link in the video description. So
Mm-hmm.
if you want to schedule something with him, whether it's talking about research, his PhD is in experimental psychology, so anything to do with psychology, sociology. Ryan's my older brother, and he's just got a wealth of knowledge, and I'm blessed because I don't have to click a Connect link to connect with him. I can just pick up the phone and call him. But yeah, he's super good information that you're going to get from Ryan and in a wide variety of categories and topics.
Yeah,
But
data
okay,
analysis, you name it. If you just have like a research article that you went by and you want to know if it's legit or not, you can just run it by me real quick on Connect and I can tell you. So
yeah,
anyway, I going back to these questionnaires, the perceived stigma one, great questionnaire by them. For example, here's a couple of the questions. I feel like if I disclose being a sex worker to my family, I won't be able to see my children, right? Like, it, you know, and for the benefactors, they just change the wording to, I feel like if I'm paying for a sex worker to my family, I would not be able to see my children.
mm,
So you can get
yeah,
very unbiased data here for both the
both
worker and the
sides.
benefactor. Yeah. So great questionnaire there. And then they asked some open-ended qualitative questions. Basically what's involved in the arrangements, the disadvantages and advantages of sugar dating, how much they also asked how much power they perceived they had in the arrangement. Um, and then they just asked for additional details about compensation, allowances, and any precautions to safety they may do in the practice. So I'm going to start breaking down a little bit of the quantitative analysis here, which honestly, there's oh well, I'm gonna go over the analysis they ran for both here. So for the quantitative, they ran a MANOVA, and I've talked to you about what a MANOVA is before. I know that was a while
Hmm.
ago,
Yeah.
but essentially, for the it's a complex test. Like they did a very complex analysis here. A MANOVA is a very robust, complex statistical test where essentially you take, in this case, they're taking their power inventory, relationship power inventory score, the hyper gender ideology scale score, and the stigma score. And the MANOVA is going to make a composite score of those three scales. So essentially, it's turning those three scores into a single score. And then it's going to say, is there a difference in this composite score between the benefactors and the sugar babies? What they found is no, there wasn't. Um, so essentially, the benefactors and the sugar babies had similar, at least not different, not statistically different perceptions on power dynamics, hypergender gender ideology, or whatever that survey was
Which
that was not
yeah,
good.
which was on that
Uh,
busted survey.
Yeah, and then the stigma, they didn't differ much. The qualitative analysis, and oh, real quick, JJ, if you want to pull up that, let's see. Sorry, I have like so many tabs open. Yeah, you got it up. Okay. So right here, you're going to see like the mean scores for each of the surveys here. And these are them not, broken up individually, not as a composite like the Manova created. So you'll see the power inventory, the mean for the sugar babies 3.74, for the benefactors 4.11. Like, that's not a huge difference. That's not, a quarter point, give or take. The hyper gender ideology, like it's pretty close to identical here, 2.5 to 2.35. Um, and then, in fact, sugar babies, I mean, there's not really a difference between sugar babies and benefactors and gender hyper gender ideology, but the sugar babies scored a little bit higher on that. So, um, oh, and then they summed it. So they did an average and then they did a sum. And I'm going to tell you why they did that here. I would have just reported the average. So in scales, a lot of times they're either scored by summing or the average. The problem with summing the scales is that if you have any missing data, like if somebody didn't answer question 19, well, then that's going to impact their score, right? They're going to have a lower score because it's added up. Where if
Hmm.
it's averaged, there's no impact done by one missing question. So that's why in research it's better practice to average the scores than it is to sum them generally, unless you have no missing data, which is very that doesn't happen very often. Usually you have people that skip over questions. So they just reported the sums here just to be more thorough. But I think that the mean scores was what needs to be reported. And then the stigma scores like barely any difference here. So they ran a MANOVA. What they also could have done, they could have taken the approach by running what we call t-tests, and they could have ran 3 t-tests and well, independent sample t-tests and looked at the difference of each variable alone instead of a composite. Um, the reason they didn't do that is because a MANOVA it's more safe. It's a less chance of error. It's a less chance of getting a false positive than running 3 t-tests, right? The more tests you run, the more chance you have of an error. It's like rolling the dice in craps. If I only have to roll once to avoid a 7, you know, I have a less chance of busting. But if I got to roll the dice 3 times, my chances of hitting a 7 are way higher. So statistics works the same way. You run 1 test, your chance of error is lower. You run 3 tests, your chance of error is much greater. So here they ran the MANOVA to lower their chance of error, which honestly I probably would have done in this boat, but I probably would have looked at the t-test too just to see what these did individually. Some people have the idea when running a MANOVA that all the variables must be very like related or similar. And these variables are pretty different. I would say like power dynamics, gender ideology or hypergender ideology, and stigma are pretty different variables. So I could also justify seeing 3 t-tests here. Either way works. Um, the MANOVA is the safer way and it's the harder route to go. So I applaud the researchers for doing that. Now, when it comes to the qualitative data, uh, they did a content analysis, which is like it's a shorter version of like a thematic analysis because they are free response questions. There's probably not a ton of qualitative data there. And then, so how this works is they basically pull the content and they have, you want 2 coders to look at the content and see if they can start deriving themes the the content written. So for example, if I was pulling qualitative data about how someone feels throughout their day, like if I asked like how would you say your mornings go during your day, you know, or how do you feel in the mornings during your day? And then someone's like, oh, it's really tough to get up in the morning. I often find myself laying in bed for hours. Um, I start scrolling on my phone endlessly, feeling ashamed, uh, you know, looking at other people's pictures, and then I feel blue. Okay, so like right there, you have three codes. You have hard to get up in the morning, you have scrolling endlessly on your phone, and you have feeling blue, right? So those would represent three codes. Now, those three codes kind of represent the same thing. They represent depression, right?
Yep.
So that's a theme. So you code the data and then you put those codes into themes. So that's how qualitative coding works. So to know that the researcher is doing this correctly or that there's rigor behind it, you need a second coder so that you can say like, okay, I got the same codes this person did. I got similar themes that they did. So in this research, we call this inter-rater reliability. They use 20% of the data, which for this is light because they didn't have a ton of participants and it's not a ton of qualitative data. And the two raters at the beginning got 84.1% agreement on their coding for themes or so generally what you want to see is you want to see above 90. So they said that they addressed the coding discrepancies and then refined the coding. Now, what I'm going to say, if I am reviewing this for a journal, I'm going to say, well, why didn't you give me the new numbers on the new agreement after going through the discrepancies? Like, you know, you should talk to the coder, the other coder, especially since you only did 20% of this, like together. You should talk about where your discrepancies were and then have them code another 20%. And then you code another 20% and see if you hit the 90. So if I was a reviewer, this has been a very great study. I would simply just send this back and say, hey, can you read, can you and the other coder do some more coding and see if you get 90% agreement on your, on another 20% of the data? If they do, great. Then we can accept it. And just keep on working until you get your code set to where it is 90%. So that's what I would do. They gave them a little more leeway in this study because this is published. Um, but as a qualitative research general practice is you want that 90% agreement, and I would always look for them to code more than 20% of the data if it's this light. 20% of the data would be more appropriate if we did like uh, let's say 20 or like I don't know 20 like hour and a half interviews or something like that, something more dense. So ultimately, what did they find here in this study? Um, most uh, most babies, well, for descriptive analysis here, most of the babies and benefactors only had one arrangement at a time. So it's not like the benefactors were had like a truckload of sugar babies all at once. It's not like a sugar baby had several benefactors. They kept it generally, uh, one sugar baby per benefactor on average. Uh, so how many arrangements had they had in the past? Sugar babies on average had 4.29 arrangements, and they're 29 years old on average. Benefactors had 6.22 arrangements, and they're 48 on average. So, one of my issues here is with the average on the sugar babies is I noticed that they reported that one sugar baby reported 50 arrangements. So this is skewing the data. Like this is raising the average.
Oh wow, yeah,
Like
that's gonna kill the data.
right,
Yeah, there's no
has a
trust.
sugar baby? Do you really believe that there's some sugar baby that's had 50 arrangements where they were getting
It
paid?
it would not surprise me these days.
I'm
It would not
skeptical on
surprise me.
that. That's an extreme outlier in my opinion, especially if the average woman is 29 here. Um, I'm kind of thinking that this person kind of counts as like going out on an expensive date, maybe as an
Yeah.
arrangement, and and they're counting that like, oh, they took me to, you know, a very expensive restaurant that costed, $400, and so I would have honestly, I would have either removed that as an outlier, or I would have reported the median here instead of the mean. So that mean baby arrangements should probably be like lower than what it is. Um, all right. No difference existed between sugar benefactors and sugar babies in the importance of the dating aspect. Uh, uh, so, some people may picture like with the sugar baby and the benefactor arrangement that it may be all about sex. That's not true. They actually like the dating component is a big part for both the benefactor and the sugar baby. Um, and there was no difference between each other. 75% of arrangements were found on a dating website. 94% involved sexual exchange. Um, so uh, it's 75% involved dating. So most involved dating, most involved sexual exchange. No, uh, sorry, I'm reading kind of my notes here. Benefactors reported that feeling more emotional intimacy than the sugar babies. So that was statistically significant. So
So you're saying
the
the sugar
benefactors,
daddy?
yeah, they get more
Yeah.
emotionally attached than the sugar baby. I think too is the sugar baby knows this is a temporary thing. You're a lot older than me. I,
Or some of them were looking for long-term relationship though,
yeah,
right?
some it seemed that way,
Yeah.
but the benefactor, th- they may like they talk about this too in the qualitative data. The benefactor sees this as a mentor relationship to a degree, so they may like see that they're, shaping young minds, and that may get into a little
Hmm.
bit of an emotional intimacy there. Um, so but both had shared that emotional intimacy was actually a part of the relationship, both the benefactor and the sugar babies. That was an important part in the qualitative data, but the benefactors feel more emotionally intimate. Um, the sugar babies were more likely to feel pressure to do something than the benefactor. That doesn't really surprise me since they are the ones getting paid, so they're the
Yeah.
ones with the expectations, right?
Of course.
So
Yeah.
1/3 of sugar babies engaged in other sex work before. So, um, I don't know if you find that surprising or not.
Nope.
Or no,
Not one
yeah.
bit.
So, nearly 70% of benefactors had engaged in some other transactional sex before. So this, both the benefactors and well, most of the benefactors have engaged. This is not something new to them.
Nope. They've been
Most
to the strip club before.
Right, right. Benefactors' monthly income averaged $81,000. But like, I would want the median because I'm sure there's some benefactor they interviewed that's like, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars a year, right? And
Yeah.
he's throwing off the average. So I would like the median. Babies on average made 4K a month. And that was with both incomes. That's with their job and with this. So
Oof.
most of the sugar babies are not making a lot of income on their own. So that's one reason they're going into this. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
kind of reveals that. So most sugar babies reported on average that half of their income came from dating. 20% of the benefactors' income on average went to the sugar baby. So benefactors are paying about 20% of their income on average to the sugar baby.
Whew. boy, 20%.
Yeah, that's like your taxes, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Good lord.
um, let's talk about some themes in the qualitative data. So two major themes emerged. Um, one was monetary compensation, and two was dating up. So, approximately half of sugar babies describe the financial benefits as their primary motivation in participating
Hmm.
in sugar dating. So, 51% definitely wanted to do this mostly for the money, it seems like. Um, and here's a quote from a couple of these sugar, or one of these sugar babies. Monetary needs get met, but also it's not just about the money. Sexual needs get met, and I get to have worldly experiences I would not otherwise. There is emotional support, but not to the point of codependency, and we get to each live our own lives. So, sounds like she's really happy with her arrangement. There is more than monetary compensation, as a
Yeah.
driving force for them. Like, I'm sure, getting to go on vacations and, fly
Cool
first class to
restaurant.
places. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
all awesome. So, uh, also, sugar babies often reported being, or many reported being attracted to older men. That's not uncommon with women. Uh, I would say, well, where's the gauge? Like, these are on average 19 years older than them. I don't know if every woman is attracted to men that much older than they are, but anyway. They also felt valued when they were spoiled by their benefactor. So that's another motivation. Uh, Over one quarter of sugar babies reported that the main motivator for participation in sugar dating was the benefit to the lifestyle. So there you go. And they felt like they were able to date. Or oh wait, this was sorry, retract. Over one quarter of sugar benefactors, 28%, said the main motivation for participation in sugar dating was also the benefit of the lifestyle. They were able to date above their league in looks and secure intimate exchange from young, beautiful companions. Also, this garnered them attention that they would not typically receive. One sugar
Yeah.
daddy, uh, who was 36, described his decision to engage in sugar dating this way. I started sugar dating young, merely because I had a lot of money, but also because I had trouble getting dates, and I have high standards in appearance of who I want to date. After meeting and dating a couple of attractive girls, it actually raised my confidence and my social skills with women, and I enjoyed the rush of the experience of meeting new people from different cities. So this is a guy that's just probably like a shy nerd, and he's like, dude, I suck at approaching women, so how about I just pay to meet them? And,
Yeah.
that's how, so that's,
It's
not
a
every,
win-win for both parties.
yeah, yeah. So I think the point here is definitely that there's a lot of different types of people that do this. There's educated, there's cheating, there's, those that are just nerds, there's those that do it for the money, the lifestyle, there's those that are trying to mate poach. Like it's a mixed bag here of
Yeah,
everybody that's
it is.
yeah. Um, you know, and they talked about the benefits here. Essentially, a lot of the sugar babies reported that like one of the awesome benefits is just the companion element, that they do a lot of stuff that typical dating they would do. They watch shows together, they go out to bars, they go to museums on walks, host parties and hang out with friends together. So, essentially, and like I said, these arrangements, I believe, on average, were between 1 to 2 years. So, they're getting to know some of these people's,
Yeah.
friends. Um, the benefactors reported that one of their 28% reported that one of the opportunities that it provided them that they liked was to help mentor young individuals, financially, and to mentor them financially. So obviously they're giving them the money, but they're probably giving them advice how to, use the money, it seems like. So, uh, one sugar daddy specifically said, experience the excitement to getting to know and being intimate with young, attractive women at their formative stage in their lives when I can be helpful and share their experiences. All right. Another benefit that was listed was transparency. Um,
Yeah,
the
I can
trans
see that
Yeah,
straight up.
there's just very much transparency of expectations and boundaries. So,
Yeah,
these are my expectations of how much we're going to be intimate. These are my expectations of how much resources I expect from you. There is no
yeah,
gray area. It's very contractual. So,
yeah.
that was an advantage listed. Now for the disadvantages. Sugar babies reported the safety. Now it was
Yeah, I can
only
see that.
yeah, it was 29%, and also 28% of benefactors. So this went both ways. Safety went both ways. Um, so sugar for the sugar babies, they had concerns about physical safety, specifically, where the
Hmm.
benefactors had fear of their reputation safety, and they had
Blackmailed.
fear. Yep, and they had fears of being scammed and deceived by the sugar baby. There's also interpersonal concerns. So this was definitely more of a concern about from the benefactors. About 38% reported that they had fears about the genuineness of the relationship, meaning that they believe that, like, if you're a male and you're engaging in intimacy, you know, you definitely at least want to hope that the person wants to it finds you attractive and wants to engage in sexual acts too. Well, these benefactors, about 38% of them definitely had concerns that that wasn't the case, that this was solely just a financial arrangement, and that the sugar baby actually had no interest in them beyond that. So, uh, power dynamics, like we said, we saw no difference really between power dynamics between sugar babies and sugar benefactors. But with the qualitative data, we get to look at some of the reports here on why that is. And one sugar baby reported that the popular belief says that men are in charge of sugar relationships, but in truth, women are in charge of the arrangements. So, which gives them
Mm.
power. They get to decide, how many times I see you, what's the price. One sugar baby also wrote, "I generally let the men lead since it's what they prefer. I feel in control at all times, and I don't feel unsafe around my sugar daddies. I guess I feel powerful in a sense that I know they adore me and want to impress me."
Yeah.
Compensation was reported. You know, the in the qualitative data, they one person reported that it they were at first $500 a meeting, then $4,000 a month. Then he wanted to see her, you know, $4,000 a month for twice a week. Then it went up to $6,000 a month plus extra traveling when he wanted to see her 3 times a week. Uh, Later, when this woman wanted to look for a husband, they started meeting only once a week, and he gave her $3,000 a month. So that's just an example of what an arrangement was like for, between her and her
Hmm.
benefactor. The researchers want you to note that the data was collected during COVID-19 and the sample was small, not not diverse in terms of. I don't think they looked at race at all, but it was not diverse in terms of sexuality. It was almost all hetero for the men, and then it
Yeah.
was hetero bi for the women. And they had limited ability to recruit with just online samples. You know, to be honest, they got what they could get, and I respect them for that.
Yeah.
And they had the attention checks to eliminate the biased data. I think they did a good job. My suggestions ultimately for this study, if I was to give guidance on it, better gender norm scale, just ditch the
Yeah. That was
hypergenderology.
whack.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do a more thorough inter-rater reliability practice with your qualitative theme coding. Uh, I would say, maybe just remove the outlier, sugar baby arrangement, or report the median at least on the sugar
Median.
baby arrangement,
Yeah.
and report the median. I think would be helpful too on the sugar daddy income. Overall, though, very thorough and excellent study. I love mixed method study. I think they're the most comprehensive form of research. And like I said, if I was and I will always do this after these studies because I am a journal reviewer. But if I was to get this study, I would accept this paper for sure. I would just say we need you to do your inter-rater reliability practice more thorough here. So just get to 90% on that, code another 20%, and then send it back and we'll publish it. So overall, that's all I have. Great work by these
That was awesome.
researchers. Um, Shout out to them. You have the article, right? Bring that article up. Let's see where they're
Yeah,
from.
I got it
I,
right here.
yeah, great, great job.
Yeah, I like the topic they chose.
Yeah, I know.
It
I was I was
definitely.
impressed. I was impressed, man. This is good work.
You want to
Oh,
see who did it at the bottom?
oh, the hard article. Hold on. It's
Oh,
in
okay.
our message. It's in our message Slack. Let's see.
You mean the hard here?
The
Oh yeah,
hard,
yeah, I got it.
yeah, the hard article. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I didn't tell you to bring that up before the podcast.
Oh, maybe I don't have it then.
It's in the Discord channel.
Is it this one?
Yes, yeah. Scroll all the way up there. Let's give a shout out to these researchers for such a great job. All right, so yeah, it's a four authors, and it should say where they're from there. You zoom in a little bit under the authors' names. It should have their affiliations. Go scroll down. Yeah, here it is. Department of Psychology, University of New Brunswick, Department of Psychology, Mount Ellison University. Shout out to those universities for having their researchers do such great work. Um, you know, I always love to see high standard research like this because there's a lot of bad
Man,
research
I
out
I
there. But
can't wait to see where I hopefully they we get another study without
from
COVID-19 with the bigger sample size and with a better scale. That scale that we were criticizing.
mhm. Yeah, well, um, any idea of what we got for next week's topic?
Oh man. Oh, we got a bunch of stuff we want to do. I think the best one I think is going to be the probably the AI. I'm into the AI stuff. So I think the AI one with us outsourcing a lot of our cognitive bandwidth to AI, I think it'll be interesting to learn more about that.
All right, that one sounds great. We'll take a look at that one next week. Everybody, if you want a study that you want us to look at, you can comment down below and we'll take a look and maybe it will make the show. Again, if you want to connect with me on Manek to send me a study to look at, or if you have any questions about research, data analysis, um, you can connect with me on Manek and I'll gladly answer your questions. Um, Also, we
You can
have
also
a,
just email us
yep,
at info@helloresearch.com. Just shoot
absolutely.
us an email there and we can take a look at everything.
Right. We do independent contracting research for individuals and for companies. So if you have any questions or guidance you want for any kind of research, hit us up.
All right, signing out. Y'all take care.